So I watched AEW Dynamite tonight for the first time in my life, and I really enjoyed this show quite a bit. I was really shocked by how into it I was. So just for some quick background here, I would say I'm a lapsed wrestling fan who still frequently tries to engage with the fandom. Like, I still want to be a wrestling fan, so I still will tune in. Like, I watched the Raw on Netflix, and about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour into it, I was like, all right, I'm fine, man. This it just wasn't really capturing me. I'll watch the WrestleManias and some of the big pay-per-views, and I have a buddy who really likes who follows along, and so I try my best to keep my fandom intact. But if I'm being totally honest, my wrestling fandom has definitely waned over the years. And so I have HBO Max, and now AEW is streaming through HBO Max. And tonight I was, because I have it on my YouTube, and I was scrolling through it and I saw it was live, and I was like, cool, I'm going to jump into some AEW Dynamite and see what we get. And as soon as I booted it up, I'm seeing dudes do backflips off of they're doing backflips from the stands, from the bleachers down to the floor. They're on the scaffolding doing backflips and doing double suplexes through tables. And there's all this backstage shenanigans going on. And I'm like, yo, what? Have I been kind of sleeping on AEW? Is this something that are they getting up to this style of shit often? And so I was like, I think they did a good job of just immediately hooking me, because doing stuff that was that outlandish, it brought me back to the days of, oh damn, okay, Stone Cold and his four-wheeler, Stone Cold and blowing up the DX Express and the beer truck and the Kurt Angle with the milk truck, DX invading WCW. I'm like thinking back to those moments, because if I'm being totally real, I think that if you're going to the event live in person, excellent. You want to have a fantastic moment to moment from the beginning of that bell to the third count of the hand when the referee hits 3. You want excellent, fast-paced, great matches, great storytelling within the matches. But if I'm being honest, from a television viewer perspective, I really like the backstage storytelling more. And maybe that comes from a slightly more casual perspective, where it's a little bit more flashy and in your face, and it's easier to, to connect and kind of hook me in. So this backstage shit that was going on, I was like, okay, well, if they're keeping true to this throughout the show, and maybe not to that degree, I understand you want to hit off and immediately punch people in the gut, but I tuned in. I'm like, all right, you hook me, I'm there. And so I continue watching, and I'm kind of continually invested. I'm not, there's definitely dips. I'm not saying this show was perfect by any stretch of the imagination. There were some serious dips here and there, but all in all, like, I was thoroughly captivated throughout the majority of this show. And for me to sit down and watch a full 2-hour show of anything, because as you see, a bunch of video games behind me, I do a lot of content creation in the video game space, and video games are my main passion, my main time-consuming entertainment hobby. And so in my brain, I'm always wrestling with the idea of, okay, well, I could be watching this kind of subpar thing, or I could be jumping into a video game and making a little bit of progress on whatever game I'm diving into. But with this, they were doing enough consistently to keep me there. And we'll talk a little bit about kind of the highlights of the show, but I just wanted to set that overall impression there. Was like I liked this a good bit, and I was expecting to tune in for 20 minutes and kind of check out like I usually do with most of these shows. And I mean, just staying there for a second, talking about some of the flaws, like you do see from a production standpoint, this is not on par with your WWE programming. It's just not. You're seeing camera cuts in weird spots. You're seeing camera shots not picking up, a trash can getting smashed over someone's head, someone doing a backflip off of the scaffolding or whatever. Like big shots that you have to pick up on, and they're not in frame, or there's some weird camera positioning going on, or there's some weird commentary fumble, and these things that make it feel a little bit more amateur-ish. But at the same time, there is something kind of raw feeling about that and human about that took me back to those late 90s when I was really a massive fan of the Attitude Era and the Monday Night Wars and the Ruthless Aggression era. When I was a kid, there was still some of that rawness where not everything was perfectly captured, perfectly placed, perfectly shot, panning to the camera. And there wasn't necessarily this flawless production value across the board. And that some of that was in this, some of that, not necessarily graininess, but the rawness from that late 90s, early 2000 period, I kind of felt coming across here. And sure, I'm not saying that you can necessarily excuse missing big shots, not having the camera positioned correctly for the big shots, or, not cutting to the correct camera for the big moments. You got to capture that shit. But there was a nice human element to this. It didn't feel hyperly, like, robotically produced, if that makes any sense. But yeah, man, I mean, just kind of tuning out for a second, and then you look back and it's, Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley are on the screen as a tag team. And then, I'm a big fan of Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley from the early 2000s. So there's something kind of hooking me there. And then they put on a really good match. And then you're getting a match with a guy named Swerve Strickland. And I think I wrote it down here. Swerve Strickland and AR Fox is this other fella's name. And once again, I'm not going to try to sit here and pretend I know all of these people, or I'm trying to learn as I go here. But Swerve Strickland and AR Fox, exceptional match. This was a fantastic match, and some back-end storytelling that was really good with Swerve Strickland and Ricochet going on there. But there was a spot that this AR Fox dude hit where he's like on the apron and runs and just does like he leaps to the ring post and does a backflip and like perfectly, like pinpoint accurately lands on Swerve Strickland's shoulder. I'm just like, it was a crazy spot that they kind of just brushed over like it was no big deal. That was one of the wilder things that I saw throughout the entire night, just from a move set standpoint. Just to have that in your arsenal, breaking it out like it's no big deal, that's pretty fucking impressive. Let's see here. I wrote down quite a few notes of some things that stood out to me. MJF had a really strong promo, kind of capping it off, saying... He said, sometimes you need to learn it's better to make a deal with the devil than defying him, or something to that degree. I thought that was a pretty damn solid one-liner there. And then that was kind of tying back to a Jeff Jarrett promo from earlier that wasn't, definitely wasn't all that great. Definitely wasn't the greatest Jeff Jarrett promo. But hey, Jeff Jarrett looks damn good. I think he said he was like 57 years old, 58 years old, something like that. Jacked as hell. So shout out to old Double J. Yeah, and I mean, there was some smaller stuff in between all that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the bit with Sasha Banks where Mercedes, her new character name in AEW. I enjoyed the bit where she was backstage with the Australian lady, and the Australian lady is like playing a song, and you're hearing it for a bit, and you first second you're like, okay, well, what the hell is going on here? And then she's continuing to sing, and you're like, wait, this lady can actually really fucking sing, like really well. And it's continuously this comedic thing, but at the same time you're going, wait, she's actually she's actually really talented, and she's like playing well and singing well and also being funny. Like the lyrics are lined up, and things are rhyming. It's like actually a solidly constructed song, and I'm like, oh damn, she's actually building a strong character here off of these comedic bits, which once again, like I said earlier, the backstage antics, that type of stuff is kind of what hooks me in with the story and makes me have some sort of built-in investment for these characters. The in-ring action, that's what you're there for once the feud is built up, and but you gotta build up the character backstage as well. And they were doing, once again, I thought they were just doing a pretty good job of that throughout the entire show. But yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and go over absolutely everything that took place in the show. I do want to cap it off with the main event though, which was between Edge, or now it seems like he's being called Cope, and then Neville, which is now being called Pac. And so it was a good match. Definitely a good match. Like I'm not trying to say it was a bad match. It was not a bad match. But this show was so action-packed from start to right before the end that the slower pace to this Edge, or to this Cope and Pac match, I understand the methodical nature. I understand wanting to tell a story in the ring, but there was something about that pacing of just punching you in the gut, foot on the pedal, just pressing that bitch down, pressing the gas down, and not letting up. And then the main event being where you let up, it just didn't quite feel right. It didn't quite feel right in terms of pacing for the show. But I do know sometimes like slowing it down and building it up, that maybe should be reserved for your top guys. But I don't know. It felt like the audience, it was kind of deflating to the audience. The audience didn't really feel super into it. But it like I said, it was not a bad match whatsoever. And Edge's new finish, or Cope's new finisher, it's kind of like this F5 into a diamond cutter into a RKO style thing. It was really pretty damn sick. And I had no idea that was something he had in his bag. So overall, it was not a bad match. But I dug the after match antics with Cesaro and Dean Ambrose and or Mox, and once again, I apologize greatly for using all of these old names and this old terminology that I knew from back in the day. But these superstars that I knew from WWE kind of coming in, and they have their own new group, and Mox has this like this new facial hair thing that he has going on. I'll throw an image in the B-roll here so that you can see it, but he looks so much more formidable and intimidating than I ever remembered him back in the when I watched WWE. But yeah, it was a good close to a show, and once again building these little stories and kind of planting these seeds where it's like, oh shit, okay, there's some real beef going on here between Cope and Mox. Trying to get these names, but there's some real beef going on here, and that's the hook. That's what you throw that out there. That's the little bait, and you reel me in slowly to next week, and then reel me in slowly to the pay-per-view, and make me spend that cash. So yeah, I liked the show a damn good bit, man. I mean, if I had to throw a rating on that thing, I think that's like an 8 out of 10 style show. Not flawless from a production standpoint. You definitely had some blunders from the camera cutting, and then some of the commentary blunders. And then you got some Jeff Jarrett promos that aren't top tier. There's some moments that drag the show down, but it's a good 7.5. 8 out of 10 style show. Like, I'm gonna check this out next week. I enjoyed this a good deal. So yeah, I mean, first time ever watching AEW Dynamite, and I should be clear, I don't know if I was clear about that earlier in the video. I think I watched the first AEW pay-per-view they ever did, if I'm not mistaken. And then I never really watched anything from that point. And I'm not saying that in a sense of I didn't enjoy it. But once again, tying back to the backstage stuff, pretty much everything that I watched was just all in ring, and the in ring technical aspect, like they were all great performers, but I need that story. You know what I mean? I need that story to kind of hook into, and that's going to be the thing that keeps me, captivates me, and makes me tune in for the long haul. So when it's usually pay-per-views are more focused on match to match, just go go go, match 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 match, in ring in ring in ring. And so I wasn't really like, I knew a good bit of the wrestlers from their past WWE work, but it wasn't like they were really building up narrative, any story to hook me in. So I just kind of tuned out, and it wasn't even like I made a conscious decision to tune out. I just was never really interested enough to check back in, and sort of stumbled upon it with my HBO subscription, saw it there, tuned in, and was like, damn, this is much better than I expected. So yeah, very surprised to, not necessarily surprised to be wrong. I don't think I had any pre-built expectations, rather it be positive or negative. I just kind of went in blind and was shocked to find what I found. So shout out to you, AEW Dynamite. Pretty damn good show, man.